for the meeting.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. As folks just heard, this meeting is being recorded, so it will be posted on the town's YouTube channel for later consumption. In addition, there is a live transcript for anybody who is so inclined to follow along that way. Ask that folks that join the meeting, please identify yourself by the name in your actual login. And then for tonight's council work session, we ask that observers of the meeting please turn their video off so that we can help the recording be as neat and tidy as possible. I've enabled the chat function so that you can send me direct chat messages during the meeting. The council generally will not entertain public discussion during the council work session portion of the meeting, but residents can feel free to reach out to me. If for some unforeseen reason we get interrupted tonight in a way that makes it that we're not able to continue with the meeting, we'll quickly shut that down and disseminate a new login so that we can continue uninterrupted. And with that, Mr. Mayor, I will turn it back over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. So before I ask for a motion to go into executive session, a brief executive session, do we happen to know if Councilmember Kumar is going to attend tonight?
I had not heard otherwise. I'll try to reach out to him just to.
Okay, so yeah, so that way when we go into the session, you can get him right in.
Sure.
Okay, with that, Mr. President, would you like to make a motion for us to go into executive session, and then the town attorney?
Yes, I move that we go into executive session
Second.
for
General Provisions Article 305(7) to consult with counsel in a legal matter, namely enforcement of the town code.
Thank you. And I saw a second. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Heller, Councilor Heller, second. Okay, so we will now go into executive session, and thank you, residents. We will see you in a little while. It shouldn't take very long.
Yep. So I'll just place residents back into the waiting
Oh,
room.
here's Councilmember Kumar.
Here's Councilmember Kumar as well. So bear with me one moment.
Okay.
Okay, I think we have.
Sure. Take us back.
Okay, thank you for the other meeting participants for your patience while we work through some legal issues. We're now back in open session, and I think
We'll
do
turn
we
it
need a
over to-
motion to and motion to adjourn the council meeting before we go into the.
Okay, is there a motion to adjourn the council meeting?
Motion.
moved.
I see Heller and Barr second. Is there discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Thank you. And now I will convene the work session and turn it over to our distinguished council president.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, folks. First item is building code revisions. And I'm not sure, Matt, can you walk us through?
Yeah, I had included some notes based on the previous conversations, and I think Council Member Barr had helped me identify 3 areas where there seemed to be enough consensus to at least move it forward for consideration at a council meeting. And in summary, those were tiering the mitigation measures to say we prefer number one, environmental site design, number two, structural remediation, and then third, infrastructure like cisterns, tanks, things of that nature. The second was to amend the language in the code that right now specifically says that 2.6 inches of water must be handled, and amend it to say water for a 1-year storm event in case the state of Maryland or Montgomery County adopts higher standards later on. And then the third was a discussion about extending stormwater hearings and regulations for building additions.
Right. Thank you very much, Matt. I don't know, Robin, do you have any further words to add?
Right. Well, first of all, on tiering, I think we've been through this at last time, and I think we can write language so it's as much as possible with environmental site design. If that doesn't reach the full amount, then you try structural modification, structural mitigation. If that doesn't reach the full amount, then use tanks and cisterns. So it's a chain like that. The building code revision, it's just a question, it's a one-line change to the definition of a 1-year storm event, so that it simply says that the definition of 1-year storm event is the amount of rainfall falling within 24 hours. That is equivalent to the average of 1 year. Currently, that is 2.6 inches. That's basically the way we put it. The renovation one was the one where we were a bit stuck, but I thought we might be able to resolve it now. The issue is the Stormwater Committee recommends that anytime you're putting an extra 150 square feet impermeable, basically, beyond your current house, then it was going to require a stormwater plan for whatever it is, mitigation of the amount that you're generating at that point. And they got that by comparing other jurisdictions, and the different jurisdictions, of course, don't agree. They all have different numbers. So 150 seemed to be a reasonable number once they looked at that. So.
All right. Thank you very much. So I guess that the path forward here would be, if we're in agreement that this is something that should move forward, that doesn't mean we're necessarily ready to vote for and approve all of the items, but to move it forward for a vote one way or the other, we would then ask the town attorney to develop the language, and then we would submit it for the comment period and then vote on it like another 30 days hence. I believe that's the way it works, right, Robin?
Yep, that's what we would do.
Okay. So thank you, Rob. Let's just go around and see if what folks think about taking this next step on stormwater management and the building code. Debbie?
You're muted.
I'm sorry. Yes, I think we should definitely move forward with this. I read it and I think it seems really solid. Work is really good. Thank you, Robin, and your committee.
Okay, thank you, Debbie. Shannon?
So if someone has a ranch or like a Rambler style house, and they add a second story to it, they would not then qualify. If they're not expanding their footprint, they would not be subject to this, correct?
Right, because they don't displace any more water, yeah.
Okay. And then how does that work, like with the 150 square feet? How does it work versus patio and other things that are in someone's yard?
Well, if they're putting in a new patio, then they would need a mitigation plan for that. If the patio was more than 150 square feet, yeah, that's what that means.
So it includes outside house things as well.
It is particularly, I mean, so it's any addition any impermeable surface, and obviously an addition is an impermeable surface.
And then, you know, we've had a couple of different, you know, very modest, additions that have been added on, like that we've dealt with like over the past couple of, council sessions. Where people are adding on a family room or, you know, whatever that is. Do those are generally like those kind of additions of like a family room? Are they generally over 150 square feet?
One was some kind of ornamental thing in front of them, and it was 67 square feet, and so that would not qualify. The other one was over the 150 square feet, and we actually, several of us asked them, and they had already put in mitigation measures for the staff, even though it's not in the code. But yes, so one would have been covered under this new code, the other one would not.
And then what about like, so if it's 100, if you're gonna add on 200 square feet onto your house, and you need to then take care of the stormwater management that encompasses, are we asking those homeowners then to go back and do all of the stormwater mitigation for the house?
No, this is only on the addition. And in some ways I would want them to do stormwater mitigation for the rest of the house, because a lot of the houses don't have good stormwater mitigation, but this is only for the renovation, so that's all.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think it makes sense to do that, but I just, you know, didn't, because, you know, I mean, I want people to be able to like, you know, add a room onto their house if that's what they, you know, so desire, without it having to be, you know, a huge undertaking. But it sounds like this isn't necessarily like a huge undertaking as far as like proper stormwater management.
No, it isn't. In fact, as is evidenced by the individual who had done it voluntarily, actually, for what he was adding on, it isn't that hard to do for that small surface. It's much bigger for your whole roof. For that small surfaces, it isn't that hard to do.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm okay with moving forward.
Great, thank you, Shannon. Kabir?
Can someone guide me to where the language is in our folder?
Yeah, so that's number,
Stormwater notes, item number.
yeah, item number 2, I should say, item number 1 says 1 stormwater notes, and then listed number 2 in that document is the language that was recommended by the committee.
I remember this document. We had a debrief a couple of, maybe 2-3 months ago. That was after the report came out, right? So these are notes from that. Do we
Yes.
have the potential code language that is being discussed?
So tonight we were circling back to some of the items that were previously discussed that we felt like there was some consensus on, to at least move forward, to then have Ron write up draft language so that we can then discuss that and introduce that later.
Okay, well, I mean, I have lots of questions on each of those, but I wonder if it would be more productive to not try and sort of discuss them in the abstract, but maybe have some language that we can then look at and talk through, because I felt like when we did the last update, that was helpful. We saw the language, we went back and forth. I think we had maybe 2, maybe 3 work sessions, in fact, after we then finalized it. So it might be good to see that and look at it and talk through it. You know, it's always easier for me, at least, because there's a lot of technical elements here.
Yep.
That are hard to think through in the abstract.
I think that's a great idea, Kabir, and I think it's also a good suggestion on the timeline. When we're talking about building code revisions, that's a significant impact on the town code, potentially significantly impacts residents, and we need to be thoughtful. And if it takes an extra month or so to review the material, that's time well spent. And your point that perhaps for the next step, we need to have actual language to look at. I think is well taken.
Yeah, that would be my suggestion. And then I think Ron often seeks our input, and then we go back and forth and try to hone in on what is sensible. And that might be the way to go. The other thing is that as a high general principle, maybe it doesn't apply here, but the general principle, I would love to see more lived experience with the recent code update we did. It's been so helpful to us. It'd be nice to see maybe 2-3 more construction projects where we are applying the code as it is, because it has made us smarter, I think, as a group. I think that would be good to see that before we make further changes. That would be my proposal to all of you, to be methodical and thoughtful that way. I think we learned a lot from that first case, and I think but it was so anomalous. So it'd be nice to go through a couple of cases where it's not that anomalous, for instance. But just as a general principle, especially for a category of changes like around stormwater, it might be good to, again, in the spirit of being methodical and thoughtful, see the data with a few more lived experiences before we move forward.
Would it be helpful for something like this where we're talking about additions as opposed to new construction? Once Ron has got a draft, if Doug and I work together to put three or 3 to 5 kind of case studies on how that would have changed or not, based on the language.
That would be awesome. That would be, I mean, I don't want to put more request more things on, you have a crazy workload, but that would be awesome for sure. That would help us all, I would believe.
Some of the reason for the changes is the lived experience of going through that first time, in fact, which is the tiering idea comes from the experience of that first time. The second one, changing the definition, really is just straight from the LIDC recommendation to us that we should fix that definition. So it is a straightforward fix. And then additions and renovations, we've got to do something on that because at the moment we've got no language on it.
Yeah, I think as you know, if we are making a change based on one experience, I think the change will be stronger if it's based on a couple of more experiences. We'll just have broader support in town if it's more grounded in data and more in lived experience. That's, again, a general principle. It's worth keeping in mind.
Right. I think it could help frame our discussions, perhaps at the next work session when we dig into this. Okay. Thank you all. So I'll take that as concurrence that we will ask our town attorney, work with the town manager, to prepare some draft language that we can review. Thank you.
I don't think we're there. Well, draft language on number 2, net zero runoff. So is it, you want to see language on how to have net zero runoff for additions?
I suggest
language on
offline.
mitigation.
Yeah, my recommendation is, Ron, Matt, you take this offline, collect input, and then let's come back to a work session. Let's not craft it now.
Exactly, but the subjects, the items for this revision that are in consideration is adding tiered mitigation, amending the language for the one-year storm event, and expanding the stormwater regulations to include additions. So I'm not sure, you're referring to something else there, Ron.
Well, I'm just worried that I don't have the ability to draft amendments yet, actual language, because I don't really understand the science behind what we would be trying to accomplish.
Ron, I can certainly give you the modified language for the defining the one-year event. It's just would be lifted from the Stormwater Committee's report, which is right there. I can give you language for tiering as well to get that through. Are you saying you need some more justification for that language, or what?
Well, no, well, yeah, changing the definition, no problem. But have we determined bullet number, bullet number 3 under subsection 1, is it feasible to even capture that much water scientifically? Is it even feasible to capture that much water on a property? I know we haven't had many experiences with actual applications yet, but the one application we did have, I want to say, it would have taken, for example, 30 rain barrels to capture that much water. Even if a property has perfect soil, is that possible, scientifically?
The reason for tiering is, in fact, to make it possible. In other words, assuming that you can put cisterns and tanks underground in place as these individuals did, then you can capture the full 2.6 inches. If you've got large enough cisterns and tanks, you should not, for most properties, have to put it all into cisterns and tanks. You should be able to take some of it in the other 2 levels. So yes, it is for virtually everything in town, it is possible to capture 2.6 inches if you go through all 3 of these. The issue, yes, there could be something that it isn't possible, in which case we have to give a variance. And
Okay. All right. And then how would we dictate going down the tiers? How would staff decide whether or not one tier?
Can I suggest we make this part of the next work session? I think we need to think through all of these elements. And I actually think that no one council member can unequivocally say, this is the science. Just want to make sure that we don't just rely on one piece of input on what the science is to make any code changes here. So I would love for us to make it a focused, measured, data-driven effort, because this does impact everyone in town at a very material level. So it would be good if we could make this either a work session, and if maybe what would be useful instead of code language is to come with all your questions. And we use that as a work session, to think through all of those questions. And I think you always bring a very informed perspective that at least has helped me.
Robin, do you think that's a good idea?
Well, I think we've got already a very informed report from the Stormwater Committee that was considered and also influenced by an expert, Neil. And so we have that basis for moving on now. And indeed, what I'm talking about in terms of changing the definition is directly from the expert. The idea of the 150 square feet was the recommended amount from the Stormwater Committee after meeting for 18 months. So those are straightforward. The tiering really is a response to a weakness in our code that appeared during that first review, where we were divided over whether cisterns and tanks were eligible, and it suggested that we had said in the code they were eligible, but they're clearly not popular, and so tiering them is a way to make them the last resort, and that was the thought there.
I think nothing about this experience.
I don't know why we're studying it more. I thought we've studied it. I thought we're there. I thought we were there.
That's what this, yes, exactly. That's what the Stormwater Management Committee has done for us.
So I don't know why
I can speak in terms of ESD to the MEP, right? You've got a Maryland design manual that says these are the things that are possible to utilize to achieve appropriate treatment of stormwater.
Right.
With respect to the tier, how is staff going to determine when you're allowed to go to the next tier? If someone doesn't want a rain garden, but a rain garden's possible on their property, when does staff say, no, I'm sorry, you have to have a rain garden. You're not allowed to go to the next tier structural.
I don't think they'd ever say you'd have to have a rain garden. You have to say, but there is capacity in your yard to control water. So we need to see that design from you before we go further on. I think, so
it would be mandatory unless you got a variance. Conservation landscaping would be mandatory unless you got a variance.
Right, yes, so you do that to the maximum extent practical unless you have a variance, and then you move on to structural to the maximum extent practical unless you have a variance, and then on to cisterns.
Yeah, I would think this would be helpful to the contractors to have it spelled out sort of the process they should take. And it defines or provides some guidance in terms of flexibility in coming up with a solution that works on a specific piece of property.
Yeah, I think I can write that now, understanding that the tiers are going to be mandatory tiers and you can't go to the next tier unless you get a variance. But then it might be complicated by volume, right? Because if you can't do 100% of your volume requirement in conservation landscaping, then you have to go to the next tier.
Well, and that's, yes, and that's the reason why we have tiers, yeah.
And staff could figure that out.
Right, so I mean, what staff have to look at is have they done it to the maximum extent practical at that level?
Okay.
The consent.
And I'm not sure the staff has to make some of those determinations. They can help define how much has been done at each level for the council to consider.
Well, we want a recommendation from the staff, as we always get from the staff, that they believe they have done it to the maximum extent practical in this case for these things, but we would do the determination, yeah.
Great, so I think we have a path forward. Kabir had, I think, an excellent point about questions. So if you run into regulatory roadblocks as you try to put this to paper, Ron, please just define your questions or draft your questions so that the council can weigh in at our next work session.
Okay, will do.
Okay, thank you very much. We're still behind schedule, but really good discussion. Thank you all for bearing with us. The next item is town pool. And I think, Matt, you can provide the updates here.
Yeah, so the pool committee had met and requested that the town pool stay open until September 18th. They had based that off of some conversations with Jerry at the pool committee meeting, but I had a follow-up meeting with Rob Smith, who's the construction engineer for American Pool, after the meeting. And the follow-up was, we really should get working on this as soon as possible. And I kind of wrote down my notes, so I won't rehash them all here in the interest of time, but I think at this point, based on the scope of the deck repairs and some of the timing challenges that are there, I can't personally recommend going along with this, but that was the recommendation from the pool committee. Informally, I've had conversations with Matt Zaft, who's joined us actually this evening, and I think Matt and I think he spoke for the committee for the most part, our understanding of that as well. I think Matt had maybe suggested when we get our final schedule, it turns out that we can stay open an extra week or so, that we look at it then, but we don't have that information quite yet.
I have a question about this, Matt Trollinger. One of the things you said from your meeting with Rob was that, our costs could go a little higher, maybe a lot higher. We don't know. And I just think we need to conserve the money, and that by keeping the pool open another week, we need money to pay, possibly to add to this renovation. So I wonder what the rest of you think about that.
I think you're right that we have to consider the budget.
Is the pool, when is the pool open until right now? After Labor Day?
The pool is scheduled to close on Labor Day.
And Labor Day is late, right? It's like the 7th or the 8th or something.
I think it's the 5th.
It's the 5th, I think.
The 5th? Okay.
Monday the 5th, yeah.
And I think, the other thing is about doing this timely. is that lots of things can happen when you do this. It could be a delay. It could be just any kinds of delays. And one of the things that you said, Matt, was about, we're going to go into leaves falling. This makes this even harder to deal with the concrete when laying concrete when we've got leaves falling. I think the earlier we do this, the better off we're going to be. Let's bite the bullet and get it done and not look at this again next year.
Yeah, I agree. I think that with all the delays and stuff for just things in general, the sooner that you can get it started, the better it's going to be for our swimming season the following year, or whatever, 2023.
Right.
Yeah. Kabir, any other thoughts?
Just wondering what was on this pool committee's mind. I mean, I don't know, Debbie, are you the liaison, or Shannon?
Yes, I am.
Like,
No, the pool
what was
committee-
the discussion and why this came up? And
Well, because the pool committee, in fairness to them, they want to swim. They want the town to be able to swim. So the longer it's open, the better, especially if it's hot, So if money was no object, we'd have this pool open both on both ends a lot earlier and stay open a lot later. No, they want whatever they can get. If they can get more time, they want it. I get it.
But it's more than money this time. It is having
Right.
enough time before winter sets in to have the pool work completed, in fact.
Yeah, we don't
Renovation.
want
that's your recommendation, Matt?
Yeah, I recommend that we stick with our scheduled closing date and get American Pool in there to start the work as early as possible.
I suspect the pool committee probably agrees with that. So
I think they will. They want what's best. They truly want what's best for the pool. They want this renovation done. They get it. It's just in a perfect world, let's keep it open. But I don't think we're having a perfect world this year.
we're not going to go through the weather report. And this was my favorite council session.
Oh, do you want me to pull up average temperatures on every day?
I'm all for that.
Just give us a minute, okay? We
I
can
will
do
tell
it.
you, as being from the Midwest, September here is hot.
Yeah, I
What's-
was going to say September is still hot. You can't argue with
Yes.
that. It is.
It is hot here, but I do think that, the sooner you can get the construction started and get on their schedules, before getting someone else to sneak in, the better we're going to be.
I agree.
Yeah, I think part of it is the prep work to get ready for the pouring too. Because it's possible September will be really hot, and it's not necessarily ideal to pour concrete, but we're going to be digging up a lot of stuff and taking out a lot of things there as well. So
And I think your point is well taken, Matt, that this isn't an easy job because we have all the equipment that rolls in and it doesn't roll in easily to our pool. So everything is a little harder to do this work. So.
Yeah, because you just don't want it to extend in the other end and have them say, oh, we need another 4 months. We need another this month. we don't want to have a delayed start to any future
Right.
season.
By the way, what is the overall timeline of the construction? It would be nice to get that update. Like when it, you
yeah,
have
so
the details?
generally I can give you a very general update that they should be done pouring by November if we get started. Then
What is
once
the start date now for sorry to interrupt, the project construction start date?
Rob had said that on their calendar, they had tentatively scheduled for the week of the 12th to start pouring. So they were going to use the week before to start doing all the other prep work. And then, so by the end of November, or by mid-November, they would be done with pouring and most of that stuff. Then basically let it cool over the winter. And once March rolls around is when they're going to have to do the installs of some of the above ground things like ladders and things like that. So it is a tight time crunch.
Whenever you get a chance, just be good, could you circulate to the council just the overall timeline of the project? you know, the permitting period, when they will kick off, when do we hope
Yeah.
for them to finish? So we
Yeah,
are,
I'll talk to Rob and ask him to incorporate that into his next update.
thank you.
Okay, I think, thank you all. Robin, I wasn't sure if you had a chance to say anything there.
Actually, I did. I mean, I agreed with the sentiment of.
Okay,
we should
I
get-
thought I saw it, so it wasn't positive. Okay, let's move on to the next topic.
Where'd you go?
Did we lose you, Steve?
Sorry, yes, I was pushing the wrong buttons. So the next topic is Public Safety Committee recommendations. I don't know if that's you, Kabir, or Shannon to lead the discussion.
And
I
not,
don't know if Kabir has anything.
nothing.
Okay, so just I know you're supporting it. So it's Shannon.
Okay, so there's kind of two different things. I think I'll start with the policing program. So with the revitalization of the PSC committee, you know, they've taken on the task of like really looking at, you know, this policing program and how we can make it better for our town. You know, we spend $53,000 a year on it. We have one police officer in town for 2.5 hours a day on average. And what we've really found is that there's nothing in place at this moment to get any sort of like transparency as to like what is going on with this program and what the police officers are doing. So the Public Safety Committee has put forth a draft of seven different recommendations as to how we can start taking a little bit more accountability and looking into the police program and what we should be kind of expecting moving forward. So the outline has, they're very common sense. So introduce some transparency, accountability, and good governance to the police program. Ensure that the public has confidence in the efficiency of the police program and our town's government's ability to administrate the program. And enable the town to gather data on the police program so that PSC can make further recommendations. I think what happened was there was a survey that came out where residents really don't know kind of what this police officer is doing. People have made a lot of comments about, you know, them just sitting in their car and stuff like that. So this is just kind of moving forward to having, you know, those answers answered for the town. So the first recommendation would be to reactivate the police activity log. This is a log that has been in use and then was not in use, and it sounds like it has not been filled out. The most recent entry is dated April 7th. And so this would just be the log that has been used before, but basically knowing activities that the police are engaged in, location of the activities, the intersections where they're present, start time, end time for activities, violations or other traffic issues observed, vehicle stops, warnings issued, etc. And I don't know, I mean, I think that this was going to be kind of reactivated starting after April 7th.
Wait a minute. Let me just say something in terms of the process. So first of all, this is excellent and it is essential. We have no written policies and procedures for our police that we've had in town for what, 20 years now. So the idea is that these recommendations would be put into some kind of manual or whatever Matt's going to do to create, and then that should be placed on the agenda if the council is ready at either the August or the September meeting, and then it should be published so we get comments and all that. But this is the beginning of the really good work that needs to be done in this area.
Okay, so because they have this draft, I don't have to go through all of the 7 recommendations?
Well, I would say unless I mean, it's up to the
Or
council.
does anyone have any questions?
I would love to hear them.
Hear all of them?
As you see fit, whichever ones you think are.
Okay, so then number 2 would be kind of tracking the times that they're there. So, because we don't really know like when the officer is here or not here. I don't know if there's, I don't know if it is something where Matt, or anyone, like if there's a schedule or there's not a schedule, but again, being able to get some of the times that they're there is, going to be data that will be helpful for us to make future recommendations on really what it is that we probably need them to be doing, because we have such limited resources with them. We can kind of customize and shape the program moving forward. The tracking activities, so Chevy Chase Village has something where they show like what are they patrolling? Are they in static place? Are they assisting the crossing guards near the Somerset Elementary School? What are they spending their time on, so that again we can try to track what they're spending their time on and see if we need to make adjustments and shifts moving forward with the program. It has the town council should direct the town manager to send a copy of any directive or general order issued to the town police. So I don't know if we've done anything that has been issued to the town police, but if we have, then they would want a copy, the PSC wants a copy of it.
I have a question about that. So if I ask a police officer, can you swing by the town pool? This is saying that every email to the police officers should go directly to the Public Safety Committee.
I can't
Yeah, I
imagine.
mean, I don't.
Which I
don't-
mean,
Well,
I
don't think it
understand
has to go to the
it's
committee, it
a
just
Public
has to-
Information
I don't-
Act thing.
I
I
don't-
could. There's
Yeah,
no
I don't
reason, but it
necessarily-
seems excessive to me,
Yeah.
frankly.
Well, I mean, I think it's just more of like I know that I had no idea that there was any sort of goings on at the town pool. And I never heard about any of that, and that we had cameras there and that we were catching people and people were partying there and, all the thing. I didn't know any of this had even happened. So I think that, if there's things like that are in town like that, where we're saying like, hey, let's go at nighttime when these people are, breaking into the pool, that's definitely helpful for us and the Public Safety Committee to really know.
Yeah, let me be clear here, Matt, that the recommendation is the town manager to send the PSC a copy of any major directive or general order issued to the town police. So it isn't every instruction you give them. It's if there's any general guidance you're giving them, the PSC wants to know. That's what it's about.
But you can refine all that language, but this is valuable information that the council needs, so that next year, when you're deciding how much to spend for police service, that you will have information to make a decision. This is really excellent,
I was going to say,
in my opinion.
I agree with you, Jeffrey. I think on the information sharing side, the chain could be reversed, right, Shannon? Like Matt updated us at a council meeting, and then you could inform the committee, for instance, that this happened.
Yeah, but I do think that Robin, it's like a major directive, not necessarily, but I mean, yeah, if we know of, like I said, I don't think I would know. I didn't know any of that was going on.
Yeah, but we all learned the bulk of it through Matt in his town manager, if I'm not mistaken. I think it was in the town manager report that he updated us.
But it seemed like there were other people that knew about it more than, it doesn't matter. I think that we can change the language a little bit, but, we're not trying to make this be hard or overwhelming or, micromanaging. What we're trying to do is just, really kind of look at the overall program, and as we're going ahead to analyzing what it looks like in the future, we're gonna be able to see, like, you know, where the time is spent, what's our investment? Are we getting, you know, is it helping our town, and looking forward to making changes with it? You know, and we don't have any of that information right now. And when the police program was set up, like what, 20 years ago, I guess, we don't really have any policing policy as a town, and we probably should, because I know that, you know, the residents are definitely interested, you know, as well as, you know, why is the cop just sitting on the corner of Fallstone and Essex, or, you know, and I mean, if we were able to provide a little bit of more guidance to it, I think that it would be beneficial for everyone.
I agree that it probably helps to have a policy in place overall on policing. Just, I can say from personal experience, I encourage this group to talk to our officers. I happened to meet with Officer Alcott because of the incident last year. And, you know, these are very competent people. I think we're very fortunate to have them. I know there's a lot of scrutiny on police, but they're very competent people. So we may come away with a different perception of what they're really doing when we get to meet them. So if you have them
Definitely.
there. Yeah.
For sure.
A couple of points. Though Chevy Chase Village has police, the point is that they have full-time police. We do not have full-time police. And I think that makes a couple of differences that are important for us to do something about. It's one thing getting them to record the times they're here, but what do we want to do with that information? Isn't it much better to have ourselves understanding what are the best times to have the police officers here, and tell them those are our preferred times, and then see how well they manage to match the preferred times? Then that's structural. Similarly, we don't have guidance out to them on whether we want them to move around town, patrol around town, or alternatively to stay at intersections, or to mix up their activities, or to cycle around town versus drive around town. We got none of that guidance there. What do we want our police officers to do given the limited time they have here? And when are the times that we want them here? We should define those things.
Well, and I think that that's part of the point. So like, you know, if we have a better accounting system of what they're doing at what times, we can then start to craft what we want as our goal. You know, maybe it's that, you know, when school's in session, and when Somerset gets out at 3 o'clock or whatever, and people are just blowing through Dorset and those stop signs, you know, that might be a good time that the police officers are there. And if we find that, you know, they're on a corner in, you know, Uppingham, like at 9 o'clock in the morning and nothing's going on, that might be not a good time for them to be there.
We need to make that, we need to say that though. We need to make it explicit that we would really want them to be there at the time school lets out.
But we don't even know, I mean, I don't know when they're here now. So I don't know what they do. I mean, maybe there's something very important that's going on at Uppingham at 9 o'clock in the morning.
That's the whole point. There's no, and this doesn't only apply to Matt. The decision was made to hire officers, and the amount of money was designated, and that's it. And no manager has ever had any kind of guidance on. And then, of course, there's always been the issue of trying to find available officers and what have you. So the point is to give guidance based on the thoughts of the five of you, such as priorities should be done for school time or you know, Halloween. We want them there. We probably want beefed up patrols if we can in August when a lot of people are away, you know, things like that. And you know, this is really going to be the manager's job, and the manager can get advice from the Chevy Chase Village chief on what might be the best times to deploy because they're right next door. But it's just, we have to start with some kind of guidance, and then it can be amended in the future.
Yeah, well, right. I mean, I think the PSC's recommendations are very good input for Matt, and that's great. But I think we need to give input to Matt, which is along the lines of what you're talking about. When do we want our police here? What do we want them to do when they're here?
Yeah.
We,
I
the
think the
council,
5 of you are capable of coming up with some general guidelines based on your experience of living here, being elected officials and the like. I think you have good judgment. I think you all have good judgment and can come up with some ideas.
This is
Not
a,
necessarily today, but
it's a little non sequitur just to throw in to talk about another time. But do we have enough coverage? You know, do we need more hours from these guys?
I think that's
No,
part of
so-
the thing. We don't know because we don't know what they're stopping people or if there's any.
how
if
much,
We
how,
don't,
how much money did you put in the budget this year for police?
I don't know.
Essentially $50,000.
So 50,000 and they get paid for 50 and a half, 40 an hour.
$55.
So
$55. now.
divide the amount, and that's how many hours you've authorized Matt to hire for this year.
Right, but what I'm saying is maybe we need more coverage, you know? Maybe we need, you know, a little
But-
less of something else and a little more of this, I don't know.
Danny, that's the kind of thing that once we've talked about when we want them here and what we want them to do, we'll get a feel for, maybe we need more coverage than we have, you know?
I didn't
you know,
mean-
and it's something that the officers, you know, might be interested in, like, you know, thinking about what's the most useful time for them to be here and what, you know, what are the most useful activities that they find themselves doing here at those times as well.
Now, I didn't mean to bring this up to discuss right now, but just to put in our pocket to think about.
But,
You
but
know,
that's good.
It-
That's
it-
part of this. It's not a non sequitur. That's part of this, and it's important. I'm glad you're discussing it.
For reference, Debbie, that's about 17 and a half hours per week total of police coverage. So
Okay,
that's where, that's where the Public Safety Committee said, you know, roughly 2.5 hours per day we have of police coverage.
gotcha.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember that it was the recommendation of the Public Safety Committee that we budgeted what we budgeted, if I'm not mistaken. So it came out of some process.
I think it was just based on, you know, what we've been doing in the past, but, you know, now it's really taking a fresh set of eyes on this moving forward and seeing if there's other ways that we can, you know, be more effectively using our policing program and the money that we spend on it as a town. And so this is just the beginning, you know, but in order to start, we have to start knowing, you know, we have to have this log filled out and we have to know more about what they're doing and when they're here, because we can't analyze any data or anything like that without any data to analyze.
Yeah, on the surface, the law feels like a no-brainer, I suspect, Matt, right, to implement.
Oh, yeah. I don't see any reason why there's a problem putting in place a log and, you know, that what we can collect data on that for a certain period of time. I agree with Robin that one thing that might be helpful is if the council puts together some idea that, you know, Ron and I could then draft a policy of, you know, what are the priorities that we have for the police? Is it coverage in town during major events and, you know, X amount of hours overnight and during rush hour, or, you know, just thinking about, and the data could help inform that, but kind of helping to drive, why do we want police in town right now?
Okay, so just to give you some institutional history, when the police were originally hired, it was for the specific purpose of stop sign violations and speeding. That was to be the priority. Then, of course, people complained that they were getting tickets.
Well,
Wait, was that ticket revenue going to us?
No,
Oh, all right, never
Well,
mind.
we're happy they're getting
but
tickets.
they were complaining, but residents were complaining. And I could tell you a lot of stories that are just would blow your mind. About the ones that wanted the police here for that reason, that then the next day I saw them speeding and blowing stop signs. And they come to a town meeting demanding we have police.
So are you guys comfortable like moving this forward to the next council meeting?
I am.
Yeah, me too.
Yes.
Sure.
I think the
Okay,
sooner
great.
we can have a policy or protocols in place, the better.
Great. And then the second thing was about the missing street signs. And I don't know, you know, I'm not sure how often this is coming up or not coming up, but I do know that I personally reported in that there's a missing street sign on Uppingham and Fallstone on March 5th or something like that. And it is still missing. And that is a really crucial piece of public safety for our town because as Kumar has told me, I guess the ambulances don't use GPS, they use maps. I don't know what that is, but and so if they don't have the street signs, and you don't know, you know, if you're walking down Fallstone and you don't know that that's Uppingham, like it could be Trent, it could be Trent Court, you know, I mean, I don't always know those streets, and that sign is missing still. And Matt said that it's going to be it's going to arrive on July 21st. And I think that we're able to put it up pretty much right after that. So it is getting fixed. I don't know how much this has happened like throughout the town, if this is, you know, a constant thing that we need to look at. And, you know, it's part of the public compliance or the compliance officer, you know, perhaps like moving forward, but, you know, just making sure that we have the proper guidance and procedures for when something like this does happen so that it doesn't sit out there for 7 months and like what the expectations are. Because I think if you were to go to Montgomery County and put in like missing street signs, they have like, oh, well, we'll get them to you within 4 days or, you know, I don't know what it is, but, you know, we're responsible for that as a town of ourselves. So just making sure that we get, you know, we escalate that to top priorities, because I really do think that missing street signs where you don't know addresses is a top priority.
I agree. Thank you for that update, Shannon. So are you proposing that we just acknowledge that as a priority, or is there a policy document that needs to be
The
approved?
recommendations include that we establish a policy on a number of days between when a missing sign is reported and when we replace it.
Thank you.
I support that, not knowing what the current process is. If there's a way to improve it, I'm all for it.
Yeah, part of the problem was we were down a staff person that we would rely on and don't have either a public works, and I was having trouble actually procuring a sign itself. And I think that at the last council meeting, I had maybe given you an update and said, I'm just going to go ahead and order a sign off
Yeah.
the website. So that's why it's
I mean,
now
we-
coming this week.
We had a discussion about hiring someone to basically cover those kinds of things. How are we going on? Have you managed to make any movement there? Or?
Exactly, yeah. So I've got a job description out for that. And also Linda and I were looking into a project management software as well for the staff, so we can track things
Great
like
idea.
this more easily as well.
Yeah.
So I think so. I recognizing that this took far too long. I think we're in a good place that we could comply with, you know, this policy, and also just in general be in a better place to replace this much more timely moving forward.
Well, and I think that it would be good to like also, you know, if you can share the job description for the compliance person, so that we can kind of all start to think, or maybe I bring it back to the PSC, because, you know, it does encompass so many things, like whose responsibility is it if shrubs are covering on street signs and the sidewalk repairs that we kind of handle as like one-offs. Like as we're getting ready to hire someone for that role, we really should have a detailed plan of like how each of these things kind of gets done and, who follows up with who on it. And, just kind of put some procedures in place moving forward that we can then use kind of as a workbook or a guidebook, for people as they're coming into these roles and, what's expected.
Okay. Thank you. Unless
That's
there are
it.
any further questions, comments, we'd like to move on to Revenue Committee recommendations.
I can just quickly give an overview. I think Nick Fox, who's the chair of the committee, put it pretty succinctly, but basically the two ideas that they would like to move forward in is setting up a system by which the town can receive donations. And then the second was in somewhat similar vein. The swim team has been approached about sponsorship ideas, and so allowing some type of allowing that.
So the idea here is, first of all, whether a majority of the council wants Ron to draft something, a vehicle, so that residents, citizens can make hopefully tax deductible contributions to the town.
For
You know,
what?
there
Yeah.
obviously there are ways that governments can set this up. You take, for example, there's the White House Historical Society that collects money in a nonprofit vehicle to buy furniture and items for the White House. So there must be a way, but so this is tonight. It's whether you want to charge our town attorney to create such a vehicle. Now, the issue about the sponsorships for the swim team, I don't know. That's a more complicated thing, because I really don't know what that means, and I don't know why. I heard from a resident that they were talking about corporate sponsorships for the swim team, but I don't really get what the benefit of the sponsorship would be to the sponsor.
I mean, we can focus only on the gift account for the time being and deal with. I was going to say that setting up the gift account is one thing. We also need to write procedures around how to use the money. That's important too. And whether we do any formal structuring of the gift account to allow the givers to specify that they want it for the, pool Olympics, for example, that is something else.
Well, one model that perhaps I think Tacoma Park has a Tacoma Park Foundation, Mr. Town Attorney. So maybe that's a vehicle you could, and maybe we can find out from the MML what other towns might use as structures.
Yeah, I think that's the right question, because it's unclear one even needs a separate vehicle, and that by law we might be able to issue a sort of a tax write-off simply on receiving money. I think we are legally able to do that. I know there's an IRS policy on that for the federal government, for example. So I think the question is to investigate what are we legally able to do, and then to draw up a policy and a procedure around it. And on the swim team side, that this framework might help the swim team, might help any endeavor in town, frankly. Once
Well, the swim team, technically is not. The swim team is not. The swim team is part of the government. Now
Yeah,
we're
Exactly.
we're working with Ron and exploring that in a separate.
Yes,
Separate
but what I mean is that anyone can contribute for potentially designated uses and could get a write-off, would be an ideal outcome of this policy. But we have to see what that works. And I think that there was also someone in their will left money.
Yes, we already have money, so we need to write a policy around it.
But
So
that
it
is-
is
but
it is
but
related to
that-
this.
But that wasn't attack, that wasn't, that was just a bequest.
Yeah,
Yeah, so, okay, so sorry to muddy the waters there, but there has been some money that's been received. And I think that Matt and I talked about that we currently have a gift policy, but it's very narrowly defined, if I'm not mistaken,
Yeah, we do,
around benches or,
yeah, we do have a gift policy.
so we wouldn't anyway need, I think this would.
But I'm
Yeah.
not sure when that was created, that policy, there was any consideration for tax deductions.
For sure. In fact, I think it only covers benches, if I'm not mistaken. And so it would need to be updated.
It covers, I think it covers benches and dog poop station.
Dog poop stations, exactly.
Because the idea,
Fantastic.
the idea behind all of that, which I think that was created at least 10 years ago, was that we don't want to get all these unsolicited gifts that are not, that are, we got the piano years ago, which turned out to be a burden. We got the batting cage, which has been a burden, and it's not used. And then once we get it, then then it becomes an item that has to be maintained.
Well, so I only bring that up because there is a draft policy. It's narrowly defined. So that could be the starting point to expand that definition and then to build this procedural framework around
draw a
it.
distinction between.
But I mean, this is all, again, just like with the
I
Public
guess our
Safety
cash.
Committee recommendations, it's good that we have this committee and that they are talking and thinking outside the box, and we're getting started on it rather than just chatter all these years. Now we have a way to implement policy, and it's great.
I think we need a wider discussion, and maybe not tonight, about taking donations. And because it sounds like this committee is defining getting money, not pianos, not things, but money, so we can put it towards things. And I'm a little uncomfortable by it because I don't know where it's going. What are we doing with this revenue? How do we, who decides? Somebody gives us $100,000. They want to give us a gift. Is it, who decides where this money goes for? They just want to give us a general.
Well, that's what Councilor Barr was talking about, that we're creating a policy so that, is it going to be are we going to only accept unrestricted gifts? Or are we going
Right.
to, maybe we don't want to accept restricted gifts.
Right.
And ultimately, the decision that's going to be made about how to use this money is going to be, I would assume, will be up to the council, the same way it is for our tax revenues. I mean, that would be the appropriate way for the decision to be made.
Yeah, I think ideally we don't create a parallel process, because then we are receiving revenue, we are following a process to determine a budget. We don't want a parallel process for any money coming in. It goes through the same budgeting process.
Yeah, but I mean, we all could come up, we've got to understand, do we put them only towards capital projects, or do we use it to support our operating funds, which I do not think is a good idea, but I said we should get that laid down, as.
Those are all the things, and we have to make sure we have a policy in place. Otherwise, a future mayor could solicit contributions in some way and then misuse it. There has to be checks and balances on it.
And I think the policy should give us the ability to reject gifts.
Well, yeah, especially if it's wants to go to something, restricted that we don't want to deal with.
Yeah,
Well, I'm surprised to hear Jeffrey say we got this, but we could have easily said, no, thank you.
Right.
Right? Historically, the couple of gifts you mentioned, we could have
well,
arguably
well,
said,
I think
no,
that,
thank you.
I believe that I don't know what happened with the batting cage because I wasn't, but the piano, which I was one of the donors, that was officially accepted by the town.
Okay, all right, it went through some
I
process.
believe it was.
All right.
Yep.
And that turned out.
It was.
We'll go into that offline, but that turned out to be a gift that was not really a gift. That just became a burden.
So where are we going on this? Oh, how are we setting this up? I'm just,
Well,
Yeah.
the idea if at least 3 of you agree to it, we will charge the town attorney with creating a draft that then goes through the legislative process so that all these good questions that you have will be raised.
I think we should move forward with it, yes, so, myself.
Concur.
I also support it, but I would be open to, as the earlier discussion, to have it part of the next working session as a draft, so we get time to collectively look at it before it makes it to the next.
Well, yeah, I mean, it definitely, it's not ready to be drafted and thrown on a.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
And there are always questions and there'll be nuances and we can,
But it's good that you are starting this discussion and process.
Great, thank you. Time is short. I'd like to tackle at least one more item. The bee
I see.
apiary
uh,
and
Steve, I see Amalia is here. I wonder if we can tackle the last item.
Elizabeth Hurwitz here for the traffic committee too.
Okay, all right, never mind. I didn't know.
Well, we'll be able
I'm happy
to,
to keep going.
Mr. President, the traffic survey and the forum that Amalia Levitin is going to be working on, that won't take very long. So why don't you do the apiary and then we can quickly do the other two.
Okay. So for the information, my fellow council members, I've been working with Robin and Barton, the chair of the Environment Committee, and the town manager to try to address some of the issues. Basically, I boiled it down to 4 major areas of concerns with the town having a bee apiary: safety, as in bee stings, the cost of the effort, procurement policy, how do we select Elizabeth, and benefit, what does the town get out of it? So the path forward that I proposed, and if the council is generally supportive, we'll continue with this approach. Addressing the safety, we had the bee forum, and the town manager, and we have the link to the town, to the bee forum. And town manager will be notifying neighbors. The big thing is, let's step back, do this properly, draft a job announcement for a part-time beekeeper to install and maintain an apiary. We would pay the beekeeper a very nominal salary, like $100. That should also address the town's the insurance question. And we requested the beekeeper provide the town with some number of jars of honey that perhaps we could distribute at the new resident day. And that would provide a benefit. So I don't want to drag this into a debate because we're not voting on this at this point, but if this sounds like a reasonable path to try and move this forward for a vote, I guess I would look for approval to have the town manager prepare that job announcement. Any questions or comments?
I have one question. If this person is our employee, what legal ramifications do we have for not only her or him, but for something happening down at the B place? Somebody gets stung, somebody gets stung and dies. I don't know. So it's really Ron questions.
Well, I believe if and Ron can verify it, but if this individual is a part-time employee, the activities are covered by our town insurance policy.
Yeah, and there.
And
there
I'm
would be
not,
all
Matt, I'd
liabilities
asked Matt to, sorry, go ahead, Ron.
I mean, there would be the liabilities associated with having an employee, so we'd have to have that employee covered by our workers' comp, pay minimum wage. And they'd be eligible for the benefits under our town employee handbook for part-time employees.
Would
As I
they-
understand
would-
from
would-
legit,
would
it
things-
would be covered.
If
You
the
know,
person were a
examples-
contractor rather than an employee, would they still be covered by the insurance?
Independent contractor would not be covered by the insurance, as I understand from legit.
Okay.
If we have to pay them a minimum wage, then that's certainly more than $100 to $500.
And there might be a way to classify them as an executive employee, but I haven't had time to research that. I mean, another option would be to appoint them as an official, because I understand from legit that directors, officers, committee members are covered by our insurance. So I mean, this could be a
Sounds official
program run
beekeeper, I
by
like
the
it.
Right.
environmental committee, and they could be appointed to that committee.
So that might be sufficient. Thank you very much, Ron. So if folks are amenable, I can work with Matt and Ron to sort through some of these details and prepare an announcement for discussion at our next work session. Sorry, something's going on here. And not hearing anything over my dog barking. Let's move on to the next agenda.
Okay,
item.
so regarding the proposal by the traffic committee to do a survey, I was delighted to learn that the traffic committee was planning to do a survey, and I know that Councilor Barr raised this issue, but I think that we had decided, based on past experience, that if a committee wants to do a survey, they work with the town manager, and it doesn't require any kind of council approval. I don't think any.
I think it's important that the council learn about the survey, and I think the work session is the way to do that. So here we are.
But
thought
I
the
don't
survey
think
was
there's any,
great.
but I mean, does anyone have an objection to the committee doing a survey, a traffic survey on Little Falls Parkway?
Yeah, it's about reactions to Little Falls Parkway road diet.
I mean, to the
I thought
extent
it
it
was a
helps,
really
I can.
good survey,
It
actually.
may not
survey's
happen
good
in
for me.
Somerset, but I can tell you in another town, another council did find that the council should approve the survey because the survey could reflect policy decisions that the council may have not made yet. But, it's food for thought.
Well, I would say, unless anyone has an objection, that we continue with the policy that I think we kind of agreed to, that if a committee wishes to do a survey, they work with the town manager. And then once the survey results are produced, then you can discuss, argue, debate how the survey was done or the results.
Jeffrey, actually, I disagree. I think council should know about the survey before the survey is given. So,
Well, I think that in the future, that a policy should be created about that, which I don't think there is one now. But in
sure.
the interest of time for this survey, which they feel needs to be done right now,
Right.
I would say that if anybody, unless anybody objects, we should let the committee work with the town manager. Is that, and the
I don't know.
liaison, aren't you the
Yeah,
liaison,
I'm
Councilman
the
Barr?
liaison, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I have an
sure.
objection.
Is
I don't
is that,
object.
is that fine with everybody?
But it would be
Sounds
good to
good.
get a
Thank you.
broader update from the traffic committee. I'm a little fuzzy on what that committee does. So
Uh,
at some point, it'd be
Well,
nice.
I
to
don't think we
catch
have
up.
that. I think
We don't
we're,
need to do it today, but
Yeah.
maybe the next session would be good to understand the
okay.
overall objective.
So, Mr. President, I think the last item you want on the agenda tonight was regarding the forum.
Yes,
Yeah, so regarding the proposed forum, so Amalia Levitan, who is an advocate, as you all know, for the 16-year-old vote, along with me, she's in a program this summer that she needs to do to complete her assignment or whatever it is. She needs to put on this program in August. So unless anyone objects, she's been working with Matt. Unless anyone objects, that's what's happening. And then if there's, I know that Councilor Heller was interested and concerned that if the forum's in August, that not enough people will be around to participate. But first, it'll be recorded. And secondly, we can do something again in September. So
No
do you have
objection.
anything to add to that, Matt?
No, by all means, go ahead with that survey in August, yeah. I mean, that forum in August.
Yeah,
yep. And I appreciate Amalia taking the lead.
yes. And Matt is working very nicely with her, so.
I just want to clarify, we had a working session, we brought this to a vote, and then we didn't get the majority support, I think. at
It was,
that
ta-
It was a tie vote.
it was
time.
tabled.
I would. It was
It's
tabled.
tabled. We'll update you after this. We'll
I see.
update you, but
I see.
you weren't,
I see.
I think you weren't at the meeting, so we'll.
I was
we'll
at the
let you-
meeting. I was at the meeting of the vote. I wasn't at the subsequent work session, I suspect.
But
But
I
was
think
at the-
Shannon wasn't there.
Yeah.
That's right, Shannon wasn't there. So it was tabled, but we'll update you.
Okay, because, I hope we're not taking two steps back on something that I thought we had a productive.
No, it's
No,
tabled.
I thought what we were gonna do was have a forum and
It's-
then vote on it. Let people in the town
It- I
understand.
think it
what
was,
is.
I think Mr. Town Manager, wasn't it tabled until to the September or October?
It was.
Yes,
agenda?
I think
Yeah.
at the time we said we would bring it up again in
Well,
September.
it was
So I
formally
think that
tabled.
that was also part of Amalia's reasoning for trying to have it ahead of that meeting.
Yeah, I
Sounds
think the idea was to educate our residents and then
Right.
vote on it. I don't think we're going backwards, Kabir. I
No,
think
we're not
we're
go-
actually
No,
going
we're not going backwards.
All right, I'll take your word.
Okay, Mr. President,
Time to get
Um,
us out of here.
I think that completes
that's
your
it.
agenda.
We got through all of the main items on the agenda. Thank everyone for your engagement and contributions. I'll prepare a brief summary in the next day or two. Have
And
a
we'll
great day.
see you,
Thank
and
you.
we'll see you at the next council meeting on August. what day is it?
1st.
August 1st, Monday, August 1st. See you then, 7
Okay.
We're all
PM.
there.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.
Good night.